Hi Maureen. Okay, so we have your past life spread here, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at where we are, what you did with the majority of your time, an important day, another important day, the death, and the lesson learned. And usually we get hits of time throughout, but we're going to put that away because right away we are starting out with the Atlantis Lemuria card. And this is very much Atlantis. We're looking at a life in Atlantis, and we're looking at someone who is using their mind a lot. And so we have, for the majority of your time you spent, this is the science card. It doesn't necessarily mean scientists, but it could be someone who experimented or loved to observe, or someone who actually was a scientist and worked in that field. And so obviously Atlantis, it's not here right now, so we don't know exactly what went on. But we do have ideas about its advanced technological state. And I feel like when we get this card of the scientists, what really came to me was crystals and grids, and so that's not very normal for me to feel with this kind of thing. And I do know that there was something with crystal technology here, and I feel like you are a part of that. And I also feel like we're looking at the life of a female, but I feel like this is a female in like a man's group. Like, I feel like if you're working with people, you would be one of very few women in this man's group. And I feel like that in itself, there's something about that that's isolating, and it almost feels narrow, like a feeling of having a narrow spectrum of opportunity. So your job is to really make connections from what we're going over here to your current life, and I'm just going to try to help along the way. Okay, so for example, that could mean that in your current life you are someone who, in your career, what you're working on or with, you aren't out there with tons of people. It would be, maybe you work with a small group or one-on-one, or maybe you just don't work a lot with people. Maybe you use your hands to work with things instead. Maybe honestly, this would entail something like you're interested in crystals, or if you've had an interest rise up currently, recently, whatever, with crystals, check it out. Look into crystal grids, see if it vibes with you. That's what it is. See what resonates with you from this, okay? So, I'm seeing someone that basically you do this all day and then you come home. I don't see someone who's vastly social here. And that could mean in your current life you might be someone who likes to stay home, a homebody. Or on the flip side, it could mean that you're someone that wants to be social, wants to get out and be with a lot of people, because you went through a more isolated kind of feeling of existence here. So in your current life you'd come back to want to experience something different. So you see how that can work with the connections. So let's move to an important day. Okay, so here we have the war card, and these cards are not always face value. It can mean a war, like battles and all that, but it can also mean a war that's inside, an internal war, and that's kind of what it feels like here. This has come up meaning battle and all sorts of things, but in this case it feels very much like we're going through an internal battle here. And when I lay this out, this feels like it's coming up because of things having to do with relationships, so keep that in mind. And so we're seeing this internal battle, and we're seeing we're seeing the spouse card, and we're seeing loneliness. And I feel like we're looking at a marriage here, your marriage, because it doesn't always have to mean yours, it could be a friend or whatever, but here we're looking at your marriage, and we're looking at kind of an empty relationship here. And I feel like it started out passionately enough, and I also feel like it started out young and then just kind of pittered away to the point where there's feelings of infidelity, there's like arguments, you're not on the same page, you've gone this way, they've gone that way. It's a feeling of like you've grown in this way and they're growing in whatever other way. And I feel like, I don't know how things were back then as far as unions and marriages and stuff. But it feels like how it would feel if it were a first marriage that ends in divorce. And I feel like he ends up leaving, but and so we get this lonely feeling, but it's not that you, so he ends up, it feels like he ends up leaving, but there's a feeling of you wanting to, like, you know, that last ditch effort and attempt to get him to stay, despite knowing deep down that it's not right for you, it's not right for the both of you. It's empty. And but it's very human to want to still keep the companionship and keep that investment, basically, because that's what it feels like, the investment. So in your current life, if you're in a relationship or looking for a relationship, or you've had a relationship that's similar to this, it could just be playing out the leftover things going on here, like you felt unresolved in this, so it would come back in your soul memory as wanting to play out the rest of it. So in your current life, if you're going through a divorce, or it can also mean that you're someone that's actually scared to get in a relationship, or you don't want to get married, or things like that, or maybe you've gotten married with doubts, and that's how you can connect. But on the other hand, again, I said maybe you don't even want to get married is because this was such a shallow marriage. It was not right, even though it was passionate in the beginning. And you can also be someone who gets into relationships based on the passion and the lust at first, because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you know, what do you see? Well, you know, when you meet someone, you see them and you're attracted and it's all physical and da da da. But it doesn't have to be that way, but you might feel like that's the way, or at least that's how maybe it's been done in your life, where there's instant chemistry physically, and it turns into something, and then you find out this isn't what I wanted. It's not the promise that you wanted. So keep that in mind. You also might be someone that could really, really want to be in relationships, because without a partner, you could feel like you're not just lonely, but like the feeling of like, what's the point if you're not going to have a partner? Well, there is a point, you know, like, and that could be also the flip side, where you might not be looking for someone that looks for partners because of this life you went through where you needed to have one, right? So keep that in mind for that day. Now, this next important day, we're seeing a marriage, and this can mean a lot of things. It can mean your marriage, a friend's marriage, whatever, but this is actually a remarriage. You are marrying another person in this life, and this person is your soulmate. So we're seeing you step up a level to, you had to go through this crap to get to the good stuff, and you met your soulmate, and there's a marriage, and there's a sense of pride, and the pride comes in because you have allowed yourself to let go of this and move on, and a pride in also like allowing yourself to be loved and to love again, because a divorce, a breakup, that can take so much out of you. And that can also not just take a lot out of you where you have to start over, but that can change a person in a big way. That can really jade someone. That can make someone, that can change someone's soul. That can just make someone not want to deal with anyone again. But in this case, we're seeing someone who has learned, let go, moved on, and because of your ability and your hard work to let go of this and to move past it, you were given the gift of this soulmate. And this is a feeling of a relationship that's very mellow and peaceful and loving and gentle, and it's everything that this wasn't, and it's so satisfying, and you're so proud of this, that this life you're building here. And I'm trying to see if there's even any kids, but I'm not getting a feeling. Like, there could be, but I feel like this is when you're older. So I feel like this is a young, passionate relationship, and I feel like it took at least a decade for you to get to this place again, at least. So I'm not sure if there are children, and if there are, it's not about that. This isn't about building a family. This is just about finding a union and feeling how it feels when it's the right one. And recognizing that it's not just all about fire and passion and sex. It's about consideration and generosity, and the ability for each of you to give space to each other and know that you'll be there for each other when you're done. Versus here, there was something about no space, a neediness, a clinginess, not of just you to him, but like each other, you know, just like that possessiveness. And then we see this next relationship that is all about giving, you know, no limits and space, and knowing that even when you're not with each other, there's love and you'll come back together. And I feel like that's the most important thing. So again, in your current life, if you're looking for a relationship, it's almost like wanting to say to you, like, look for the right things. Don't replay old patterns. Don't get caught up in old patterns. Don't fall for it, basically. Don't fall for the BS. Like, really, like, you know what is good, and you can find it because you found it here, and you could find it again because you know what it feels like in your soul. So it would resonate with you if you're someone who is looking for a relationship. If you're someone who is in a relationship, this might be coming up because who knows, you might be having doubts. You might be growing in a certain way, and they're growing in a certain way, and it's time, and you might be fighting it. And a lot of people fight it, I feel, because they don't know what's on the other end of breaking up or the divorce, whatever it is. They don't know what's on the other end. Is there anyone for me? Is there going to be another person? Am I going to be alone my whole life? And the idea of being alone for people's lives, that is one of the scariest things for some people. So they'll stay in something that's not satisfying instead of letting go and having faith that the right thing is going to come their way when they're ready. And so that's the next important day, is really kind of finding yourself with a partner, how to be with yourself while also having a partner, basically being a whole you and him being a whole him, and coming together to create a really lovely union, but not a half and a half to make a whole. It's a whole and a whole to make this complete union. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now the death card, this is an accident card, and when I laid it down, it was clear that the accident happened when you were with your partner. You were going somewhere, almost like a vacation. It's almost like you were somewhere you've never been before, and it was unfamiliar territory. And I feel like there was a misstep taken where it was literally a fall, like something where you fell or you were pulled down, like somewhere, like if you were to go out to the ocean and you were unfamiliar with the tides or unfamiliar with the certain part of the water that the locals knew, don't go there because it's going to drag you under. I feel like it was that kind of thing, and that you did take a misstep. And it almost does feel like there's water involved. So you could be someone, actually, I'm going to just say you might have weak ankles and it's something weird with your feet. If that's the case, keep that in mind. It stems from here. You also might not like heights. You might not like the idea of going swimming in the ocean, even though you might think the ocean's beautiful. You might not want to go in the ocean or go on a boat into the deep ocean. You might be just a nervous person when it comes to being somewhere precarious, like on a cliff. You might not like being on the edge of a cliff somewhere. So that's how it would relate to you. So we got heights, feet. What's that called when you're dizzy? Vertigo. You might have vertigo. So keep that in mind as well. It would stem from here. I don't know, for some reason with the water thing, I also want to say earaches. If you're someone that's gotten earaches throughout your life, keep that in mind too. So that's your death. And it wasn't too bad. It was quick, and I think like it hurt, but it was quick and impactful, we could say. But it did leave him devastated, and but that was his lesson to learn. So that's your death there. And let's see, simplicity. Yeah, that's perfect. So we have the lesson for simplicity, which goes in, you can already probably tell, it goes in beautifully when something is, this is about obviously like love. There's something having to do with love and relationships here. And so with simplicity, we're seeing here, it was not simple. It wasn't simple. There's passion and arguments and this and that can be taken for love, but it wasn't love, and it wasn't simple. And you were really unhappy here. And then you get to this person years later, and you suddenly realize this is love. Love is simple. Love is simple. Love is generous and open and kind and everything positive, and it's simple. And the right love is simple too. So when it's like this, when the love is in turmoil and passionate and things like that, it's because there's lessons involved in that. You're not going to feel bad when you're in a loving relationship. That person, yourself, there's not going to be bad feelings involved. It's going to be easy. And there could be passion still. I mean, you can passionately love your partner and have a wonderful loving union, but this kind of passion is not easy. And when it's not easy, there's a lesson involved. So if that's the case, if that resonates with you at all, and where it's not easy, there's a lesson involved. If you're going through something that's not easy, you got to know there is a lesson involved. And the sooner you recognize that lesson that you can learn and get on your way to learning the lesson and learn it, then you're going to see a lot of doors open. You're going to feel yourself ready for something more and something right and something better for you. So just keep that in mind if that speaks to you. And anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it resonated with you and that you were able to make connections. And thanks for letting me read you.